What we're going to do today is an open forum, so there isn't as such an agenda. It's a chance really for us to talk about today's subject, which is the EHCP process. Okay, and we have Michelle Milner, who is part of the SAMS team over at Peterborough City Council, and she will shortly be giving a presentation around the EHCP process. Hello, Asta. Somebody, she just popped up. Hi there, I'm just going through sort of the housekeeping stuff. So Michelle will shortly give her presentation, okay? There'll be a chance at the end for questions and answers, okay? If you have anything specific about your own child that you want to discuss, it would probably be best to discuss that actually with the service directly, or maybe contact the SAMS team, or contact Family Voice Peterborough outside of this forum, because it is an open forum. It's not a parent consultation, okay? So it's an open forum for us to give you information and for you to be able to ask questions about the process. All right, we will share the presentation, as I said, do some questions and answers afterwards. You're also more than welcome to ask any questions that you have of a more general nature, okay, as well. So if you've got questions about Family Voice Peterborough, or you know, any other questions you want to ask, please feel free to do so at the end. All right. Okay, so best thing to do to start with is, if because we're quite a small group, let's just do a few kind of introductions so we know who everybody is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way around the screen, okay, in the order that I can see from my end, and just ask you to say who you are, what your role is, whether you're a parent, carer, etc. Okay, so first of all, Kirsty, you're the first. Oh, more people joining us. Kirsty, can I just ask you to say who you are?
Hello, my name's Kirsty. I'm the BSL interpreter.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. That's brilliant. Just to let you know that we are having an interpreter at all of our forums and meetings now, just to make it more accessible to people who are hard of hearing. Just to go back to the introductions, I'm the next one in my list. So I'm Jan. I'm the forum coordinator for Family Voice Peterborough. Okay. Next one I've got is Karen Horn.
I'm a parent with a little girl who's coming up for 11 with quite a few issues. So I just wanted as much information as I could possibly, so I know what I'm talking about then.
Thank you. And Agnieszka, I've probably got that wrong. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh, me, Anisha.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, so Anisha.
It's myself. Yeah, Anissa.
Oh,
so
Anisha, sorry. Right, okay, Anissa.
Sorry, no, you're right. So I'm the auntie. I've got a nephew who's Zane. He's 4 years old. He goes to school and he just needs a little bit more support in him. And obviously this is his mum, Asma. But she's obviously not good with English, so I'm with her in case, you know, for help and support.
Lovely. Hopefully you'll get the answers you need out of this session.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Agnieszka? I probably got your name wrong. Can you? Yeah, you probably need to pronounce that.
It's okay. My name is Agnieszka. I'm the parent carer
Basically,
of a 10-year-old boy. Yes, and we are facing at the moment, we have to choose the secondary school for him. So hopefully I'll get some advice here. And
lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda?
Hello, I'm your second BSL interpreter. My name is Brenda Devitt.
Thank you, Brenda. Asta?
Hello, everyone. My name is Asta. I'm a parent carer representative of Family Voice Peterborough, and I have a child, a 12-year-old daughter with complex needs and disabilities. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you. Tanya?
Hi, I'm a parent carer with children who have got additional needs, namely autism and ADHD, and I just want to get a little bit more information about the session so I can support them going forward.
Lovely. Thank you, Tanya. Joy?
Let me just do it for a minute. Hiya, can you see me?
Hello.
I'm Joy.
Yes, I can.
I'm a new portage worker with the Peterborough Portage Service. So I just wanted to come along with some information and everything. So yeah, that's me.
Lovely, thank you. And then John.
Hi, I'm John, going to be trustees at Paynels.
Thank you. And then Chloe, who's actually hiding behind the name Louise.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm the Digital Media and Marketing Assistant for Family Voice Peterborough.
Lovely. And then Marion.
Hello, I'm Marion Dealey, Send Partnership Member for...
Oh, I think we lost you there, Marion. Marion, so you know, she's the Partnership Manager for Peterborough City Council. Laura Smith.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm a parent of Tommy. I'm just logging in to try and get some EHCP advice. Hopefully we're applying for one for him soon.
Lovely. And then I've got the final one is Rawlesk. Although they're not, doesn't look so.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can now. Yes.
Sorry, I was late. Yeah, no, for me, it's more to just understand about the process. So particularly my son's not necessarily delayed in any areas, and I just really want to understand whether, you know, we absolutely can still go ahead with applying, or whether that is kind of a crucial, you can't apply because he's not, you know, because he is meeting, he's above where he needs to be academically.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, lovely, thank you. Okay, that's great. Thank you for all introducing yourselves. I will now hand over to Michelle Milner to introduce herself and to start the presentation, which is around, as I mentioned, the EHCP process.
Okay, so my name is actually Michelle Milner, and I'm a Statutory Assessment and Monitoring Officer specifically for transitions. Unfortunately, Katie Blessett couldn't be with us today, who was actually planning on delivering the slides, so I'm going to be delivering on her behalf. So these are her slides, but if there are any questions relating to the slides, I should be able to answer them. If I can't, then obviously we've got people in the meeting that might be able to support me answer questions, or I can take questions away and actually get back to Family Voice with any answers. So the purpose of the session really is to go over education, health and care plans, and if you can see here, it's really that clarification on the role and remit really of the statutory assessment and monitoring service. Now in brackets there it says SAMS, so if anybody refers to the SAMS service, they do mean the statutory assessment and monitoring service, specifically relating to education, health and care plans today. So you can see here, there are lots of abbreviations in the world of SEND. I'm sure as parents, you've come up with all these different abbreviations. And sometimes it can be a bit of a minefield, because sometimes if you're talking to a school or to a professional, it can be really easy for that professional to actually forget to explain things. A lot of times professionals talk in code. I catch myself doing it a lot, so I have to sort of stop and rethink. Because sometimes we might refer to things as SEN or SEND, and as you can see from the slide, it just means special educational needs. And if it's SEND, it means special educational needs and disabilities. But there are other terms, so things like SENI, special educational needs and inclusion, SENCO, special educational needs coordinator. Sometimes you might see EHC or EHCP, it means Education, Health and Care, or Education, Health and Care Plan. And we've even got one there right in the middle of those two called EHCNA, not very often used, but if you do see that, it just means Education, Health and Care Needs Assessment. Child or young person is normally abbreviated C/YP. If you ever see LO, it just means the local offer, and I do recommend, you know, looking on the Peterborough local offer website, because there is so much information out there on that website which is already available for you to look at. If you see IS, it means independent support, DFE, Department for Education, and PFA is abbreviation for preparing for adulthood. I'm not going to read through this slide, but basically a few years ago now, actually back in 2014 and 15, there was a massive SEND reform. A lot of changes were put in place, new documentation out, and you can see there's a list there of certain key documentation. There are a couple of links as well, so when you get the slides, you might be able to actually look directly at those documents yourself, but these are all to do with the SEND reforms. Now, when we're talking about the SEND reforms, it wasn't really a change in emphasis. to the fact that every school is actually an SEND school. And it's not all about lots of extras, but actually it's good practice, best practice to have this all incorporated in a school. And Ofsted and DFE will go into a school and look for that. Because like I say, every school is an SEND school. And the change in the reforms, the culture, it's really working with and not doing to. So very much person-centred. So the young people 16 plus are actually the decision makers, and all letters will be sent directly to a child or young person if they're over 16. Very much outcome focused and really concentrating on that co-production. And there's some lovely visuals on the screen here about co-production. And I love the one just on the right-hand side here. You can see the green section on the right-hand side, that co-production. You know, what could we create with what we have to meet our needs? And it is a very different conversation. Like I said earlier about the local offer, there is a link here to the local offer, but there's lots of information. It's one source of provision available for the local area. Everything is actually listed on there. There are access to specific documents relating to the statutory process that is used by families, professionals, schools. They are all there. So you can actually see what schools have access to. And there's also lots of material for young people themselves. There's even a video of some college students which have special educational needs. And it is a fantastic video of them actually describing, you know, their different definition of SEND and support and education, health and care plan process. So I do recommend looking on that website. It is a continuous work in progress, and we really like feedback. So if you're on there and you're looking for something particular and you can't find it, let us know. It might be something we can look at and actually create a resource specifically. If you think some things, you know, could be explained a little bit clearer or aren't necessarily child focused, for example, you know, thinking about a child with special educational needs, especially if they're 16 and up, you know, they should be able to use this website as well. We want it accessible for all. So please do give us feedback, and we do work very closely with Family Voice on this anyway. Now, when we're talking about the statutory assessment and monitoring service, then you can see there the person that was going to be leading on this session today is Katie Blessett, right at the top there, head of the statutory assessment and monitoring service. And you can just see just an overview there of the people that are involved in the service. So like I said, my name's Michelle Milner. I'm actually on the left-hand side near the bottom where it says SAM Officer for Transitions. There's 3 of us, and we specifically work with schools around those key transition years. But we are actually, as a team, also responsible for things like training. And we do offer training for schools, wider professionals like health and social care, and also for parent and carers. And there is a session on the 23rd of March, 10 till 12, that will really be a more detailed version of the presentation that you're going to hear today. So if you feel like actually you want a little bit more information, or you think that, you know, you want to actually re-go over a few things that is mentioned today, please do sign up for that, and we'll make sure you've got the details for signing up for that session if you wish to. Well, service then. We really coordinate the statutory process for education, health and care plans. So we are specifically responsible for ensuring that all EHC plans are reviewed annually. They need to be reviewed within a 12-month period. We are involved with that young person, that child or young person, for the duration of the education, health and care plan, which can be up to 25. We're fully committed to the ethos of involving the young people and parents fully in the whole process. And we hold those person-centred planning meetings to gather information about the child or young person who the EHC plan will be for. And that's part of the request stage. We're really involved with the most complex children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. But the majority of children and young people with SEND will actually have their needs met within schools from the school's allocated budget. and possibly under those universal services nationally, we can see there that only around 2% of children with SEN will require an EHC plan. So really you're talking about, 12% having special needs, but having their needs met under what we call SEN support, under the school's own resources. It's only a small percentage of children that actually need the education, health and care plan to support them with that. Throughout the statutory process, we work closely with families in educational settings, so early year settings, schools, colleges and others, to ensure the best for those young people. And I just want to put it into a Peterborough context now, just thinking about data. There are currently 2,113 children and young adults with an EHC plan maintained by Peterborough Local Authority. So each of these children, young people, have a review meeting within our team's process. So in a calendar year, and you can see there the data for 2020, the request for statutory assessment for an education, health and care plan was 276. And assessments were agreed, 159 of them were agreed. And the plans issued following the statutory assessment is 223. So there are a lot of children within Peterborough whom the statutory assessment and monitoring service are responsible for ensuring their plans are reviewed, and we process the paperwork for them. The next section is about applying for an education, health and care needs assessment. So who can actually apply them? Well, actually parents can apply, involved professionals or SENCOs, the setting SENCOs that your child is attending can actually apply themselves. And all the forms needed from the professionals to fill in for an EHC needs assessment are available on the local offer. As a parent, you would not be required to actually complete that form, but it is sometimes good to actually look at that form at what the schools will be completing. If you choose to do it yourselves, still be aware of the evidence that is needed as part of the process. But the local offer does have a page just on EHC needs assessments. So you can have a look at that and look at the documentation and the advice on there, as well as seek support from Family Voice or SEND Partnership. Any request must have signed consent by the person with parental responsibility or the young person themselves if they're 16 and over. If the local authority receive a request that is not signed, we have to assume that as a parent you have not given consent and we cannot process it. So a school cannot apply without parental consent. Now, there are lots of common myths nationally around education, health and care needs assessments. And you can just see there are a few on here. Now, these are all myths. They are all false. I'll just go through them because you might have heard of them. An early help assessment is needed before an EHC needs assessment request is submitted. Early help assessments, sometimes referred as EHAs, are different to EHC needs assessments. Sometimes some people can get muddled. When they're abbreviated, if you can see there, an EHA and an EHC look very similar, but they are very different. An early help assessment might be completed by a school professional with a family to look at additional support. It might be to look at looking at a parental Webster Stratton course as part of an ASD route referral. It might be that there is support that could be obtained from an EHA to help with the family or the young person. But an EHC needs assessment is different. It is very different. This is specifically focused on the child or young person and the support that they require in school. The next one down says you need a diagnosis to get an EHC plan. Totally false. You do not need to have a diagnosis to get an education, health and care plan. The idea of an education, health and care plan is to look at progress and what support that child might need within school. And if the school has put in lots of things in place and still need additional support with that, then we would be looking at the EHC needs assessment and whether as a local authority we feel that that child does need additional support, additional to what the school has already been able to put in place under their own funding. The third one down, you need an EHC plan to get support in an educational setting. As I've said before, you do not need an EHC plan to get support. Schools have something called SEN support, which if a child is recognised and the school and parents feel, jointly that the child has special educational needs, then the school would be putting things in place through their own funding to ensure that that child receives good education, good provision, and that they can achieve their outcome. If that has all been put in place and the school and parent feel that additional things might have support, in addition to what the school can provide under their own SEN support, that at that stage you would be looking at an EHC needs assessment submitted. Fourth one, EHC needs assessment process is quicker if parents apply. And that is false. It is a standard 20-week process, and I will show you the actual process broken down in a little while, and you can clearly see that whoever applies, the process would be the same. And for some people, it can seem like it is a very lengthy process, and it is. But there are reasons for that, and hopefully in a few minutes you'll be able to see when it's broken down how at each stage of the process something is happening. So this slide here, this is just the very start of the process. So whether the child is 0 to 5 years, which would mean early support, whether they're applying as a jointly with the parent, or whether the child is in school and is already receiving SEN support, okay, you would be gathering evidence. Now, it says on the right-hand side, you can see the assess, plan, do, review. This is just basically what the school has assessed jointly with yourself. It might be just the school assessments, it might be external assessment supporting, but it's that general assessment of that child, what their needs are, planning to do something jointly with yourself at all stages of this process. As a family, you would be included in these, you yourselves as a family and the child are the key people. Planning, doing it, and then rigorously reviewing it. What has worked well? What do we need to change? Do we need to continue to another cycle of assessing, plan, do, and review? Or do we need to change things? And a top tip really from the local authority to any parents or professionals, and it is just a top tip, is really as a local authority, we would be looking at really 3 rigorous cycles of this assess, plan, do, review. So we can really start to understand that child's needs and what they actually may need in addition to going forward. We're looking at, as a school, has there been involvement from specialist services? Education, health and social care, and evidence of completed these agreed actions. So if health has advised something, then we would be looking at how the school has actually implemented that in their assess, plan, do, review process. And again, there, a top tip, early help assessments are not necessarily required, but sometimes we do get EHC assessed assessments coming in where the child may have an early help assessment. But like I say, it is not required. Now, this is normally called the 0 to 6 weeks. So there is this request stage. So your request is then sent into the local authority, signed by yourselves as parents or the child if they're over 16. And the local authority will start to look at the paperwork that is sent in. We'll be looking at the assess, plan, do, review. We'll be looking at external reports. And all of these will be taken to a panel. I'm just going to click on slightly. There we are. So all all the paperwork is collated and taken to a panel, and the panel decides whether it's a no to assess. And if it is a no to assess, you know, as parents, you have the right to appeal and go down to dispute resolution process. But that letter that you'll be sent, if the panel of professionals decide it is a no to assess, would identify, you know, why it was a no and what the reason behind that was. So support identified and available throughout the EHC, without the EHC plan, would be detailed in there. And it could be something that just sort of talks about the fact that the school may be able to carry on that level of support under their own budget of SEN support. If it is a yes, so if that panel of professionals decide yes, they want to take this assessment onto the next stage, it moves on to the needs assessment stage. Now this is weeks 7 to 15. Now the reason why it takes weeks 7 to 15 of the process is because we need additional information. The panel's actually asking for additional reports. So we would seek additional reports from health, social care, any additional external services that are involved would be invited to submit additional reports. And it could actually be that the school has additional information. So if the school has completed any other assessments during this time, which wasn't submitted in the original request, this is the time that they can actually add in additional evidence for the next panel to look at. So you can already see here, just this first part of the process is right the way from week 0, when we've received the request, to week 15. So some people might think 15 weeks is a long time, which it is, but you can see that at each stage we are doing something, things are happening. Once that panel has seen all the additional evidence, again, they may decide no to assess, in which case as parents, you have the right to appeal. But again, that letter would be detailed with the reason why it was a no to assess. And again, it might be that things could continue under SEN support, and that will be identified in the letter. If it is a yes to carry on to the next stage, then a planning meeting would be arranged with yourselves and the school or where that child is at. And that planning meeting will take place within weeks 16 to 20. Now, the planning meetings sometimes can last a long time. They could last 2 hours, it could be 2+ hours, because that is a big meeting that happens that really drafts up a plan. So at that meeting, you'd all be discussing what the plan would look like if it was to be finalised. It's at that stage as well that you can really start to plan in what provision you feel that child or young person would require within school to meet certain outcomes. Once we have that plan, it's still not finalised yet, because as parents, you would be sent that plan, a draft plan to look through. Once you're all in agreement, once you've actually looked through this, you would be receiving a form also to complete. And on that form, you can name the school or setting that you would like your child to go to. It could be you'd like your child to stay at their current school, or it might be at that stage you feel that the child, you would like to look at another alternative provision for that child, or another alternative in school for that child. You can complete that on that form and send it back to the local authority to say that you're happy with the plan and this is the school you would like named on the final version of the plan. If it is a different school to the school that the child is currently at, the local authority have a duty to consult. You can see their consultation on named school. And a consultation is just the local authority sending off the plan as it is to that proposed school for them to look through. They will have 15 days to look through that plan and to really either say to the local authority, yes, we can meet need, we've looked through the plan and we can do everything that is in the plan, or express that they want to discuss things a bit further with the local authority. They might want clarification on something. They might want to talk about certain things that are in the plan that they're unsure that they can provide. And it might be that they talk to the local authority before they set a date really and say that they can meet need. They might need to actually just discuss that a little bit more with the local authority. Once a named school has been placed onto the Education, Health and Care Plan, it is at that point that you'll be given a date with that new setting, if it is a new setting, about when the child will be joining. And so that will be liaison with the family and the new setting. And you can see there on the right hand side about requests for personal budgets, and you can gain additional information from people like the SEND Partnership Service or the Family Voice or the local offer about any request for any personal budgets. Right at the bottom of that slide, you'll see the word annual reviews. And as we said earlier, once a child does get an Education, Health and Care Plan, it's actually the local authority, the Statutory Assessment and Monitoring Service, that will be looking at ensuring that that EHCP is reviewed annually. And the schools will actually be setting up those meetings with yourselves and external services to review the Education, Health and Care Plan. And we will be moving on in a second to actually look at that process, which is slightly different. So if we're talking about annual reviews then, so it's not just a quick meeting that happens. This is actually quite a lengthy period as well, because schools should be setting the dates for those annual reviews at least 6 weeks before the annual review even takes place. Now, the reason why we say 6 weeks and plus is because we need to give professionals the time to book these in if they feel that they are required to be at that meeting. So we need to give them additional time. And it might be actually as an external service that they want that time to actually be able to go in and either assess a bit more or maybe just talk through things, or to even write a report that will feed into the annual review. So we do always say at least 6 weeks before the actual date of the review, everybody should be receiving those invites. Once you've actually got an invite, the setting would send out reminders, so another invitation, 2 weeks before the annual review. Now, at that point, any additional reports that have been collated for the annual review should be distributed along with that reminder invitation. So you should be able to see any additional reports, any reports from the school regarding the progress of progress towards the outcomes in the Education, Health and Care Plan, at least 2 weeks before the annual review. Now, at the annual review meeting, it would be then looking over the Education, Health and Care Plan and really making it focused on the child's progress, looking at the outcomes, looking at the provision that has been required. And you can discuss in that meeting whether anything in the Education, Health and Care Plan needs amending. And those suggested amendments will be made by the school or the local authority. And I say the local authority because at some of your children's EHCP reviews, a member of the local authority may actually attend, especially if it's a key transition year, like a year 5 or year 6 review. The local authority would be looking at attending to support the school in making those amendments. And the school would always then be responsible for completing something called a Section L, which is a record of the annual review meeting. And all of the paperwork would then be submitted within 2 weeks of the date of the annual review to the local authority. Once we've actually received the reports, we would look at those reports and the Section L and decide if amendments should be made, or if we should cease the plan if required, or if there are no amendments at all. And we will then let you know within 4 weeks of that annual review date. Now, once you've received paperwork with amendments on, or once you've received something that says no amends, there will be again a form in there to say where you would like your child to attend. And like we said earlier, that could be carrying on at your child's or young person's current school, or at that point you may write on there something slightly different, another mainstream school, or request a specialist to be considered. Now, the SAMS team, so the Statutory Assessment and Monitoring Service, will respond to parents' feedback and will then finalise the EHC plan. And if any changements are to be made, for example, with the setting, if the parents are actually requesting a specialist placement, then that will go to a panel to consider, and it will be your casework officer that would be in contact with you to keep you informed of that process. And again, if it was agreed to actually change placement to either a specialist, and it has been agreed at panel, we would send out consults. Or if it was a change to another mainstream school, we would still have to send out consults to that other setting for them to consider whether they can meet need of that young person. So the annual reviews, the actual process. The EHC plan templates, you know, it has had involvement from, you know, considerations for preparing for adulthood, and young people have actually been involved, and parents and Family Voice involved in looking at that template, ensuring that it's robust. We do now have electronic annual reviews. This is something that was piloted in the springtime of 2019, where schools now have an electronic version of the EHCP that can be amended. And we do that, we talk to schools about something called strike through and bold. So if you've worked on a word processor, you may have seen the strike through feature. So in a school at the meeting, if it's agreed, if you're all talking about things that you might want actually taken out of the Education, Health and Care Plan, the school can mark directly on their electronic copy using strike through, so we can see as a local authority you would like that to be considered to be taken out of the plan. And anything in addition put into the plan could be marked in as bold. So you could type in, the school could type in what the result of the conversation would be, and they would just make that bold. So we can clearly see that the family, as a family in a school, that you would like that put into the Education, Health and Care Plan. There is something called, like I said earlier, a section L, that is just a record of the meeting. And we have worked on that to try and make that more sustainable and to really look at the effectiveness of this. So we call that the condensed section L that's been developed. And as parents, you may have spoken to the schools during the start of that first lockdown about something called section M. Now, if your child has got an Education, Health and Care Plan, in that first lockdown, we asked all schools to actually look at that child's specific Education, Health and Care Plan and complete an additional document called section M, or have their own notes around how that child is receiving the what was in the plan. So it might look slightly different because of the circumstances during the start of COVID, but we needed that recorded so we could actually see what was going on for every individual child. And that is done through either a section M or a document that the school has to record that. We have, as a local authority, been reviewing all letters with young people, and this has resulted in us actually changing a few things. So just on there, you can see the consultation letter was changed based on what young people and families had actually told us. So we're always looking at, improving our processes. And the next bullet point down there, you can see there is a video from young people explaining their options after receiving the draft EHCP or notice of amends, and that can be found on the local offer. And like I said, I think right at the start, this video is of young people with special needs themselves explaining the EHCP process. And if you haven't seen it yet, I do recommend going on the local authority website at the local offer and actually looking at some of the vast videos that are on there. There are training videos on different things like annual reviews that can be watched by young people or families. And there is a selection of videos from the Council for Disabled Children that are actually on the local website, which are really useful. So do take the time just to look at that website and look at any videos on there. And the further questions slide here, you can see Katie Blessett can't be with us here today, but her details are on there. But you've also got the SEND Partnership Service details as well. And you can contact our service directly on that number and talk to any casework officer that is individual for your specific child. If you have any questions, like I think Jan said earlier, you know, if you've got anything specific that you really need to discuss, if you phone up the service, let them know your child's name, the school. They will put you in contact directly with the casework officer that is allocated to that individual school. If your child is in a transition year, it might be one of the transition team, either myself, Rachel or Josie, but we are all allocated certain schools, and it would be useful for you to actually talk to somebody responsible for your child's specific case rather than maybe discussing things here today. But if there are any general questions, then please do ask, and I'll see if I can actually ask her or answer any sort of general things. Thank you, Jan.
That's great. Okay, hello, I've come back into the room. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much, Michelle, for that. As I said, we will be sharing this presentation so that you've got all the information on it to hand and the various numbers on there that you need if you want to get further information or advice. Is there anybody that has any questions, burning questions at this point that they would like to ask either Michelle or Marion, who is here?
Can you explain more about the is it the early help assessment? I'm not, because I was led to believe that I filled out a plan at the beginning of last year, to be told no, I hadn't, and the school have literally not got back to me and said, what the TAs basically said to me, no, I think we filled out an early help assessment. So I was quite annoyed because I was under the impression it was a plan. So I'm not very happy. They're trying to get back to me. They're going to have to get back to me. But I just wanted to know what an early help assessment was. What's that about?
Is that something you could talk about, Marion?
Yes, I'll come in here. So an early help assessment is it's a form that you complete with the school, which details very carefully all your child's needs, and it can go forward to get extra help for yourself or your child from a panel community support group in relationship to any needs that your child has. Now, that child doesn't have to have special educational need to actually access through an early help. Also, the early help assessment is part of the pathway if you're wanting your child to get assessed through health for ASD or AD or further support or further possible diagnosis through health. So an early health assessment is a very, very long form. It asks you about the history of your child. It asks about the family situation. It also asks about housing and finances and who else is in the family, to get a whole picture. And then from that, if further help is required for the family, then they can go to the right department to access that. Answer your question.
It does, yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, lovely, thank you, good question. And I think there is a lot of confusion over the early health assessment because it's something that comes up time and time again when people say, I think I've already filled in an assessment, why do I have to do another one? But they ask for separate things. Is there anybody else that has any questions? Silence. Okay, that was a very, oh sorry, yeah, Anissa.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask, you know, the obviously is it ECH, well, the form that you guys were talking about in the PowerPoint. Normally, is that something that the school will come across to you and fill it with you together, or is it something that you can do by yourself? I know you said that you can do it by yourself, but is it handy for the school to recommend for you guys to do that together, or can you just say to them that you would like one for your child, or how do you go about that?
Can I answer this one?
No, it's not. Oh, sorry, Michelle. That was Marion. But
oh, sorry, Marion. I'm butting in.
No, it's fine.
That's okay. I'm just going to say, when it comes to completing the forms for an EHCP request, it would be done jointly with yourself. Okay.
Okay.
So as a parent, there are certain sections that ask for, you know, your input, and there is a section there specifically for the school to actually list all the different assessments they've done and external services, but it would be done jointly with yourselves. It shouldn't be that the school goes off and does it on their own and you don't get to see it. This is done jointly.
Okay, then that's fine. Thank you.
You should also get a copy at the end so you can see exactly what the form looks like at the end. Is that okay, Marion?
Yeah,
do you want
that's
to add
fine.
anything?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, as a parent, you have to sign the form at the end to say you agree with all that information. Also, what has got to be very clear is, from the school's point of view, what support has been put in place for your child and whether they have made progress or not made progress. And also the level of support that they put in over a period of time, and that they have followed all the advice from external professionals. So it's quite a robust piece of information by the time it goes off to the local authority, and you should be part of that, and you need to be agreeing to all of that. But the form is a combination and pulling of all the information that may have been going on for a matter of years with your child, but actually you should have been part of those conversations much earlier on, right at the beginning, when it was felt that your child needed more support in school than that of all the other children.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Yeah, thank you.
Fabulous. Anybody else have any questions for Michelle or Marion?
Can I ask a question, please?
Of course you can. Hello, Kelly. Hi.
So as I briefly mentioned earlier, what I really wanted to know was, in terms of an ECHP, can you apply for one if your child isn't academically behind? So his struggles aren't academic at all. He's only recently got a diagnosis, but there has to be absolute clear structure in place. If not, we've seen the chaos and everything that causes, to a point where he got DLA at a high rate because there was such a risk around him for not having structure in place within the school. We're just now going to the ECHP place to see if we can apply for him because he just got a diagnosis, but I'm expecting that to be our first kind of stumbling block.
You want me to go with this one, Michelle?
Yes, you can do, Marion.
So a child who has needs,
yeah,
like you're saying your son has, there is called a level of support, SEN support, in every school for those needs to be met.
Mm-hmm.
And that level of support is funded into the school directly from government. And it's that evidence that schools need to show that they are using that support money and are calling in the professionals before you can go to the EHCP request. So because your child's got some needs which you've identified, what those needs are and how they can mitigate the difficulties that he's finding. And if it is about putting in a routine, if it is about being clear with him, those types of things can be done under SEN support. If he needs support comes over and above that, we will be able to put him for an EHCP. But you also have to appreciate that actually if he is learning at the level of which is required for him, then he needs to get a plan. It is for those children whose learning is affected by their difficulties and that they need support over and above.
So can I just ask one other question? Sorry, because I guess for me, the biggest reason really wanting an ECHP in place, because we had to move him schools and actually they're managing it and he pretty much not has one-to-one, but close to it in school at the moment. And he's doing okay, but he's going to secondary school. And that's my biggest concern. So I don't know whether the school have pretty much said he won't cope at secondary school, but to put him into a school that has autism hub, he has to have an ECHP in place. So
he does, but also his learning has to have been affected by his autism. So it isn't just about that he has a diagnosis of autism. Yeah. I know, because we're getting into more details about your child. If you wanted to ring our number, then partnership, myself or my colleague can talk you through all of this on a much more personal level.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So if you want to ring 8679.
Sorry, 1 second. Just putting
That's
it in.
All right.
Right, sorry, 8679.
No, 8639.
Yeah.
79. Or you can email us direct at pps@peterborough.gov.uk.
Brilliant, thank you.
And we can talk about it in much more detail with you.
Yeah, brilliant.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly and Marion. I will add that number into the chat in a second. Is there any more questions anybody has? Tanya.
Hiya, I'm just wondering if our children have got SEN support in school, are we made aware of this or not? Because if they've got a diagnosis and they're behind in their learning, how do we guarantee that they're actually receiving SEN support, and what's there in place to make sure they're not falling behind, you know, and they're getting all the support that they need?
You should be part of those discussions with school over a period of time.
No, we don't get any discussions. We just have normal parents' evening. I mean, shouldn't we have any IEPs or anything like that in place?
Yes, that is all part of the process of identifying the needs for you to have what is being delivered for your child.
Because when I took the panel for my son, I'd done an EHCP request for Romeo, and this was a while ago now, and I agreed at mediation that they'd put extra support in place for him so he didn't fall further behind. But from that, there has been nothing. I don't believe he receives any extra support in school. He's well behind where he should be, and they don't keep me informed about anything, to be honest. They just say he's very quiet in class. And, you know, obviously being very quiet is great for them because they can manage him, but he doesn't speak up when he doesn't understand. He doesn't, you know.
But that is the conversations you need to be having with the Senko and the class teacher at his school.
Yeah.
In order to ascertain how that is being delivered.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya and Marion. Any other questions? No? Obviously, all of the information is on the Peterborough City Council local offer website, which was mentioned earlier, and which is detailed on the presentation, which we will be sharing. Okay, and I have, myself and also Marion have put the SEND partnership details in the chat at the side of this session on screen. Okay. Just wanted to check, I have put a message sort of halfway down the chat which says, could everybody please complete the feedback form after the meeting? It'd be really great if you could just click on that link and then complete the online feedback form, which goes back to our organisation to tell us how we're doing with these sessions. Okay. If there are no questions specifically around EHCPs, does anybody have any general questions around special educational needs services, Family Voice Peterborough, or anything they feel that is appropriate to raise during this?
I just wanted to know, I'm not sure if this relates, but you know the paediatrician appointments that you have for the little ones, about obviously sometimes they can be like, my nephew's a fussy eater, and obviously there's certain things that he doesn't like wet textures, and he likes dry and things like that. Obviously we were waiting for ages about him getting a paediatrician appointment, and obviously with COVID and things like that, he was meant to see a lady called, I think, Sue Ishmael. I just wanted to know, obviously, how do we chase that up and things like that, because obviously at the moment we still haven't got any answer to what's happening with that.
I think if you're talking about Sue Ishmael, you're talking about the early support pathway for the preschoolers or the ones that are just in reception.
Yeah, just
and that's all about putting all that information together, and those people that are involved with him, whether he's in a nursery or a childminder, following that advice from those other professionals that are there. So that is done at a very early stage, and then if it's felt that their needs are again over and above the needs of SEN support, that information that's all related there can go forward with the application to an EHCP. But if it's about health needs, i.e. toileting, eating, or even sleeping, things like that, that isn't necessarily a special educational need, and those needs can be dealt with in nursery or in schools, but equally with health support as well. So it doesn't mean to say that the child has special educational needs if they have a health need. It has to impact on to be a special educational need.
Okay, no, that's fine. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Anybody else have anything that they want to ask at this stage?
Now, can I just explain a little bit the difference? I see in the chat it's coming up about the difference between the SEND partnership service and the SAM.
That would be great.
I'll just explain it a bit more. So the SEND partnership service is a statutory organisation that every local authority has to have, and we give impartial advice and support to parents of children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. So we can advise on the process, as Michelle was outlining. We can advise on the level of support, so SEN support or support that goes in via health. We can advise about health services and social care services, but we are totally impartial to the local authority. If any of you do meet us, you will see that we have local authority identification badges on us, but that is purely because we are employed by the local authority, but we are completely impartial. So we can advise on all sorts of things to do with special educational needs and disabilities. The SAMS team, which is what Michelle is part of, are the team that process the EHCPs and the reviews from those EHCPs. They can't give advice on schools, they don't give advice on SEN support. they are very experienced in EHCPs and those processes, but we give all the other sort of advice outside of that. But if you're ever in any doubt, if you come through to our service and you ask the question, we will point you in the direction of who is best to help you and answer your questions with us, or whether it might be more of a statutory process, which is through the SAMS team. I hope that's made it.
That's lovely, thanks Marion. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That some people do get confused between,
absolutely,
you know, SAMS and the parent partnerships. That's a really good explanation, thank you. Anybody else? Obviously, if you have any other questions and you think about them after the meeting's finished, the forum is finished, then please do contact us at Family Voice Peterborough, okay? And one of us will be able to kind of either signpost you to the right department within PCC or within health, or give you the advice that you need. So please don't think that if you haven't raised it here that you can't raise it again. So do come through to us at Family Voice, or contact the parent partnership if it's an education issue, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, has anybody else got any other sort of general questions at all? Okay, well, thank you very much, all of you, for attending. I hope you found that really useful. And thank you for our signers for signing away there in the background for us. After this forum, do keep an eye out on the Family Voice Peterborough Facebook pages. Okay, because we advertise there lots of different training courses, sessions, you know, around special educational needs and disabilities. We advertise sort of training courses on behalf of PCC and other organisations, and it's also got a, for want of a better word, a sort of chat room where parent carers can get together, ask questions about sort of all kinds of issues around their children's health and education and around SEND, chat to one another. And we also post up quite regularly things like surveys, polls, and also lots of sort of briefings as well, you know, to do with COVID, to do with different bits and pieces that are coming out from the government. So the Facebook pages for Family Voice Peterborough are very worth looking at, because they do contain a lot of information and are a gateway for you to be kept up to date with everything that is going on. Okay, and also just to mention that PCC, the SAMS team do provide a sort of longer session around EHCPs, specifically for parent carers. It's like a training course that you can book onto. It's via, I think it's via Teams. I think I'm right in saying via Microsoft Teams, and I'm involved in that. I help sort of present a little bit around Family Voice Peterborough. I know that Michelle, who was speaking earlier, and Marion, and also Jess often are involved in that training as well. The next training session is on the 23rd of March, and it's specifically designed for parent carers. So if there is anybody that wants to attend that, again, if you look at the PCC local offer pages, there should be links to the training on there, but also on the Family Voice Peterborough Facebook pages, we put links on there to that training as well. And that's kind of a longer session, okay, covering the whole process around EHCPs for those of you that might want to join in with that. Okay. And I've got some little chats coming up, so they're coming in quick and fast. Okay, I'll send out the link again. Okay, so the session on 23rd of March is purely for parent carers. Okay, and I'll make sure that a link gets out to you so that you can book onto it. It's not actually booked through Family Voice, it's booked directly through Peterborough City Council. Okay. Lovely. Okay. Brilliant. If you've got no more questions, I will follow up this meeting by sending out a copy of the presentation with all the relevant information on it that you need. And also, as we mentioned previously, this will be uploaded to the Family Voice Peterborough, not WhatsApp, to the YouTube page. Okay, so you can replay this meeting again as you wish. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.